Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is day 19 of Oracle Integration Training, where we will continue our remaining part, which we were trying to cover in day 18. So in day 18, we just have a brief on that ATP connections and ATP operations available in that Oracle integrations, by which we just started with the performing operations on table by selecting that insert operation. So now in this today's session, we will cover remaining operations like update, insert, or update that's merge operations. Select, then we'll go for that running a SQL statement where we'll just write the SQL queries to extract the data from system. And then we have one more option that invoke store procedures. We'll see that how we can invoke a PL/SQL package from OIC and we can get data or do manipulations and all. So let's start with that. So if you remember, in our previous session, we created one integrations that FOS ATP1. This integration is responsible for getting data as a request payload and inserting the same data into the table. So now this time let's begin, and in this session what we will do. So if you remember last time what we have done, we just prepare this request payload and this data we try to just insert into table. So what kind of table it was? So we just created one table, that table having few employee information, that information we are about to hit. So on this time what we will do, we will use update operation of the same statement, that's the perform an operations on table, and we have update, insert and update and select. So this update and insert and update required a primary key in the table, so that based on that primary key it can update the record into the table. So that's we are going to see. So we have already this table, but this table we didn't add the primary key, right? So we had the record ID as a sequence value which we mapped, but this was not primary key. So let me drop this table. So once we will drop this table won't be available in the database. If I will try to run a select query, we will get an error that table already does not exist. So now we will try to create this table again, but while creating this table, we will add that specific column as a primary key, that row ID as a primary key. So why we require this row ID as a primary key? So that when we will try to insert same record with the same record ID, it will, instead of inserting, it will just update the record with this, update the complete record based on this ID table only. So that's we are going to see. So let me first make this record ID as a primary key. To make this record ID as a primary key, we have to add the identifier, that's primary key identifier, and the default value, let it be the same. So now once I will click enter this, mm, I think instead of making this primary key here, let me try with the last. I didn't remember actually the syntax for this, but let's see. No, it's not allowing. So do one thing. After next well, right? Okay. Yeah. So table is created. This table having one column, that's record ID as a primary key. So not record ID. Actually, this record ID will be automatically generated, right? And this record ID we are not going to pass as a request payload, so it will not identify that which we have to update. So instead of the record ID, I will make this roll number as a primary key. Let me copy it here. So because roll number we are passing as a request payload, so that if we will whatever value we will pass as a roll number. So for example, this record we already had in the table, right? So now again, if we will pass this record, instead of inserting that record, it will go and update, so that we will add the logic that where we have record roll number is the same, it will update the remaining value. So that we are going to see. So this is our table, and yeah, what we will do, just let create this table. So I'm just going to, so this table is created. This primary EMP role is our primary key here. So if you will see, this is our insert command. If we'll hit this record, so where is this one? Okay, so we are just trying to insert this class in instance ID only. So as our roll number is primary key, so we cannot put a null in this roll number. So let me copy this roll number here also, and here let me pass anything as 1001 as a roll number. That's done. And if we will try to pass same roll number again, so obviously we are getting error. So we will see that how we can handle that error in OIC, that all this we are going to see. So let me first truncate this one, this table, so that there won't be any record available in this table. So now let's move to the OIC instance. So this is our previously created integration, but this integration, if you will see, recently we modify the changes and we added the column as a primary key and all, but this will not be reflected in our previously created integration. So we have to refresh the endpoint ATP endpoint here to do that one. So let me just add create a clone of this integrations. So instead of 00, let so I just created two. Now this is our new integration. I'm just going to edit this integration. So this integration having same, it's getting the record from here, and whatever record we are getting, that's record is going to be inserted into this table. So this time instead of insert, we have to just go and we have to use update operations. So here if you will see, we already added this insert ATP endpoint, and that insert ATP we given the name of two endpoints. So if you will see, in the mapper we added few values, that values we are going to use to insert the record. So this time we have to just create integration in a such way that instead of insert, it will go and it will do the update operations, right? So how we can do that update operations? So if you will see the first, let me show you that. So this is the ATP endpoint. If you want to refresh the table and that whatever operations we selected, refresh the table. So here you can see we have one more options as adding the table. So you can see we have one more option to add. So we can add another table and we can add a parent-child relationship. But this time we don't require such things. We just have to refresh this table so that whatever changes we have done in this table, the changes can be reflected in OIC. So how it will be do? So just click on add and select the same table which we added here earlier. So when we will use the same table again, is it will refresh the node for this table. So I'm just going to click on add, and our schema name is ATP user. So I will select the same schema, and here we have to search the table. So this is our table name, FOAS underscore TRA underscore is this one, and the star that we are going to search based on that. So click on search. So whatever table name created with this name, it will list down below. So this is our table. Just click and import, and once you will go and click on import continue, so same table will be added because this is the same table, right, which we already had at this endpoint. So it will not just add duplicate of the table, it will just refresh the endpoint. So this is the way which we can just update metadata or the update reference, or we can update the table for this table in ATP connections after doing the changes in our code, that SQL queries and all. So just click here. So now you can see this endpoint is that. So by this way, using this way, we can update our endpoint whatever changes we have done. For example, you created PL/SQL packages, you executed SQL queries where you have to do changes, or you just added the operations on ATP table. So by this way, we can just update the endpoint. So this endpoint we are not going to use this time because we have to use insert operation, and this is we have to just use update operation, and this is for insert case, right? So instead of using this one, we will add another endpoint. So let me delete this one here. So endpoint I deleted. I just show you that how we can refresh the endpoint. That's why I done this previous operations. So now again we have to do the operation on tables. I will select ATP connections, and this was our ATP connection FOAS ATP con. I will select the same. Here I have to give the endpoint name. So as I am going to use in update operations, I will use update ATP. We have to select the operation as perform and operations on a table, and here we have to select operation as update. Just continue, and here we have to select the schema. A schema name is ATP user, and what is our table name? So the same, this is our table name. We can just directly copy this table name, or we can just we can copy this table name and search, or just we can provide any of the name starting with that and just provide percentage so that it can search based on the name which we provided or name patterns we provided. So you can see the table we are able to see here. Just we have to drag this table in the right hand side, click on import, as this time this table we are going to import first time. So once you will click on import, so node and the table columns and all will be loaded in this configuration of ATP endpoint so that we can use in OIC. Now here you can see when we added this table here, so based on that, if you will see, Below we have two options. The one option is review and manage parent database relationship. It's this table is using when we have to configure more tables and do the logical operation, just like making a parent child child relationship, that we are going to use. And the second one is that the review and filter. So here using this column we can identify, or we can add the filter if we want to add any, or just we can go skip. And as we have already the primary key, so based on the primary key we can just update the table. So let me just edit and see that which all options are we are able to see. So here you can see if we are going to edit, so this we are able to see this employee role not null, that's this is defining the primary key. So in our table this column is primary key and we cannot skip this column. And remaining you can see, so while updating, right, it's not mandatory to update all of the columns. You can just untick all the columns which you don't want to reflect in the mapper. And if you not do any changes, all the column will be there. So for example, I just don't want to, or let's say that I want to update the OIC instance ID. Record ID I don't want to update because it's primary key, and it will be already there. It's not like it's coming from sequence, it will not be there. So I don't want to update any record ID and all. I don't want to update the what is the creation date. I don't want to update the created by. These two I will update. Integration version, let it be the same name. Yes, I want to update. Process message, status, all this I want to update. So just click on continue. So the columns which we unticked, that will be removed from the mapping, so that we will not be get options to update that specific columns. Even it's not mandatory. You can let it be all the columns as tick, and in the mapper only you can skip providing the values, so that it will not insert that record, update that record. So now you can see our table endpoint added that update ATP, and if you will click on the mapper, you will be able to see the columns by which it's going to be update, and which column you want to update. So here you can see, if I will expand all the columns we are able to see here, and one column if you will able to see, it's showing that EMP asterisk and we don't have any notes. That's the primary key which we have, EMP role. If you will go to the table, you can see this was our column EMP underscore role having the primary key. Now here we have to provide the value. So whatever value we will provide based on this column, it will update remaining columns. So as this all value coming from loop variable, where is the loop variable? You can see whatever number of record we are getting from request payload, based on that we are iterating the loop. And in the loop iteration, for each and every iteration we add the ATP endpoint to update the records. So here we have to provide the mapping, and that mapping will come from the loop variable. So where is loop variable? In the left hand side you will see that loop variable we have added. So if you will expand this loop variable, all records we will be able to see here. So this is the roll number, based on that which we have to update the records. So let's go to that roll number. So I will map this roll number here, EMP roll number. And now here you can see based on this roll number which all columns we want to update. So based on this roll number we want to update this class. So MP class we want to update this name. So, or we can just skip changing the name. So if you will not provide the name mapping, name will not be updated. So I don't want to update the name. Subject, yes, I want to update. So let me map the subject here. So here in status also we want to change. So earlier it was new, so instead of new I just want to update as v for validated, or u for updated. Let me put at a u only. All this you can just add based on your logic, or based on that decisions what you want to perform operations on table. So I want to give message as updated. And integration name, again this integration name will come from here. So if you will see, earlier we have in data in the table with the integration name as 001. This time it will be from underscore 02. Integration version, this one, this is the version. And now here you can see last update date and last updated by. So last update date is, again I will take it from the functions only. So current date time function we have, and obvious last update date by, I will again select the integration run by user. So that will get from the invoked by. And I want to update the OIC instance ID too, so I will just map this OIC instance here. So validate, go back. So accept that employee name, all value will be updated. And if you will see here, we are not able to see the creation date. So why we are not able to see the creation date in mapping? So you very well know that in the configuration only we remove the we uncheck that column for that creation date. That's why that creation date created by we are not able to see here. And you will see the column that employee name, we didn't provide any mapping, so that it will not update the employee name also. Go back, and here let me go to the mapping, and in the mapping let me instead of inserted, where is that process message, the count is same, this one the count, that's let it be the same. So you can see the process message coming from the variable. So let me go to the variable so that I can update the variable. So this is the variable we had in our integration. And the variable message is like integration completed successfully, a status as, so let it be the same, I don't want to change. So click on save, our integration is ready to update the record. Go back and just activate. So let me run this integration. If I will go to run this integration, so this value already displaying here because last time we used, so just for dummy purpose. And if you will see what value we had earlier, so just have a look on the tables. So this is our table. So this table doesn't have any value right now, so first we have to insert record in this table. So to insert record in this table, we just have previous integrations created. So this is our integration 001. So let me use this integration first, so that I can check that it's going to insert a record into the table or not. So this is the payload. As we already updated the payload integrations payload, but this time it will work because that is not related to uh, yeah. So let me update this one. So Z100 1003 and 1001, that's fine. So just going to click on run. So you can see the record inserted, and let me have a look on the table. So this is the table. If I will query, I am able to see this three record inserted into table. So now what we want, so we want to update this employee, what is the employee class and the employee subject based on this value employee role. I don't want to change the name. So even I will pass the name, but I don't want to change because we didn't provide it in the mapping. So that's fine here. And here again, if you will see, we are not able to see the record ID. Same issue last time we faced, right? That while even we had the table added, right? We have the sequence added for this record ID, but that sequence is not working here. So the sequence is not working here. The reason behind, if you will remember that this default values, right, for the status and message. If we provide the message, this message, you can see this message. If we provided from this integration, from the integration mapping, so that's going to override. That's why here if you will see that the, let me go back to the integrations. So while configuring the endpoint of this ATP connection, we consider this record ID as a primary key in the nodes. That's why that primary key cannot be null. So it's when we are not passing this primary key as a mapping, so they are just considering that value as a null, and that's why it's inserting. It's not going to load this value because this value will be loaded only when we have the null value, when we didn't provide any value to here in this record endpoint. So if we will go to this one, so not to the first one we have to edit. So this is the endpoint. So let me edit this endpoint again. This is the integration 01, the previous one, which is responsible for inserting record. So go back, and here you can see this is the table, and when we are adding the record here, you will see, let me load this table again and I will show you what mistake we had done earlier. So TP schema is ATP, and what is the table name? So FAS trust search table name. Yep, and continue. Here you can see when we click that one, so this configuration page didn't ask to select any primary key. So why they didn't ask to select any primary keys? Because by default when we created table, so roll number column we already made as a primary key. So that's why this time they didn't ask to select any column as a primary key. And if you remember last time when we created this integration, so when we try to add the column, so as we had not any column as a primary key in our previous integrations, that's why the configuration only asks us to select any of the column to be considered as a primary key. And if you remember, we selected emp underscore role as a sorry, we selected that record underscore id column as a primary key. So that's why, because we selected this column as a primary key, this default value is was not working for this column. So now this time we already had that employee role as a primary key, so this time it will not impact anything on this record id. So just continue. And as you can see, we have not changed anything in the table. We didn't change any column name or anything. So that's why if you will go to the mapper, you will not find any differences over there. Even we just updated the table. That's obvious. The table having the same table, we selected the same table only. It just refresh the metadata, but it will not impact on the column mapping. So if you will go to the mapping here, here you can see it's it's not impacted anything. Record id is here, we are not providing any values. This record id consider as a null value, so just because that we added the default constant on this three columns, so that this value will reflect from the default constant only, so that's fine. Just to go back to the integration, save, everything is just save. I don't want to do any changes here. So just we have to activate the 012 so that it will insert a record in the same table. Fine. So here let me move. So this table having three records that which we loaded in previous run. So let me remove these three records. So table is truncated now, so that when we will run this 01 again, it will insert the same record and the table will have the three records. So run body having the same three values. So which values is there? So this is the same value which we have to insert. So let me first insert the same record here. Insert, and now let me copy the same payload to just make as a update. Date request payload, and here in what we want to do, so here in class, instead of th, I just want to just make a t 10th. I don't want to make it th. And that roll number we cannot change because this is the primary key. Subject we can change. Instead of OIC, I want to make as Oracle Integration Cloud, and C++ is fine. Java. So instead of Java, let me make at basic Java and C++ with oops. So now these three changes we want to do with the same data. So let me first insert the records. You can see the record inserted complete, that at 001 which is responsible for inserting is completed successfully. Let's have a look on table. So if I will see, the table is loaded and the table having the record values, right? So this value is new process, process message is new, and the record that is coming by default, and it's derived from this default constraint only, and remaining values we passed from the integration. So this is the insert operation which even we learned this one in our last sessions also. So now what I want to do this time, I want to update. So for updating the record, we already created second tables, second integration. So let me open the second integration in second tab so that parallelly we can see integration, integration. So this is 002. So let me run this 002 here. Body. So I just want to delete this one. And what value, why do we want to pass? So we had that updated payload here with few updated values. So this value we want to update based on the roll number. Even we provided this roll number in the mapping too, as it was primary key. So I'm just going to provide here. So we provided this payload here, that LX with C++ and oops. Just click on run. Yeah, it's taking bit time. So this is completed. This is our table. This table, let me pin this message here. And now what we have to do, we have just to select this table again. Sorry, this table again. So now you can see when we selected this table again, so as the second integration 002 is responsible for updating the value, so it's updated the value, iterated the record three times. Each and every time it's iterated that update ATP, and while updating the ATP, it's provide this value as a payload. You can see this roll number 100, and the employee subject EMP subject is C++ with oops, and that the status as you updated, and the same thing updated in the table. You can see status as updated you and updated, and you can see the subject is EMP subject. You can see the message we provided, that C++ with oops, Oracle integrations and basic Java. This is the same record in the table, right? The record is not updated. If you will see the previously I pinned, so previously pinned what record ID 2008 having name as Alex, and this Alex having the class as 10th th, and here you can see rule record ID 2008 having Alex, and Alex having the 100, right? 110 as a class. They don't have the th message 9 10. It's simple, right? So just because we updated the record based on the value we passed here, right? So just for example, if we are going to add one more record, which record is not there in the table, so here for example we added that Anthony, and this Anthony we want to make roll number as 105, which is not there in the table, and let me remove all these remaining values. Right, so let me copy this one and paste it here to update. So once it will click here, it will execute the integration, and let me see the log message, and then we'll explain you that point. You can see integration completed successfully, as we have only one record, that's why count is 1. This is the for each loop. Inside the for each loop we have one iteration. In the iteration you can see we invoke that update ATP, and if we will go back to the update ATP, what value we pass value as 105. That 105 you are able to see here, that all these values, so all these value we pass to the table to update the records. And if you will see the status in the response, we as it's having large value, it's not saying that. So in response, if you will see, it will not impact anything in the table. Why? Because this integration will update record based on the roll number, and the roll number 105 is not there in the table. Can see roll number 105 is not there in the table, so that's why it will not update, right? So but here our requirement is, if we are passing any new values, right, and that value is not there in the table, so instead of discarding all these things, we want to just insert this record. If we are passing a roll number which is not there in the table, right, so obviously it will not update, but we want in this case it should be inserted. If that record roll number is not there, then it should insert in the table. So obvious, for performing all these things we have to add additional logic. Additional logic is that we have to, before going to use that insert update operations, we just have to add a condition to check that if that specific roll number is there in the table or not. For that we just have to add one ATP to get the data from table, and if yes we got the data, then we will just update the record. If we didn't get the data, we have to just add another endpoint to insert the record, right? That can be the complexities. So that's why instead of doing all these things, we have next operations, that is insert or update. So this insert or update, again it will work with this insert or update. It will also, let me show you this one. Where is this one? Yeah, insert and update, it will also work with the primary key only. So what it will do, so whatever value we will pass here as a request payload, so this value it will look for the table. So if this value is there in the table, it will update the remaining columns, which columns we provided in the mapping. If this is not there in the table, it will insert the record. So these two operations can be performed using a single endpoint. That's called as insert or update. That is the merge or upsert operations. So let me make this copy again here, and this is our payload. The payload having 4 rows, and these three are already created, or these three are already loaded in that, and this is the fourth one. So what I will do, I will just create a new integration, instead of using the same. So I will just create a copy of that. So this one, this let's do that one only. So I will make a clone of this one. So 003 create. So now 003 is going to create here. Instead of using insert operation, I will use upsert operation. So let me delete this endpoint first. So even you can see here, each and every time we don't require to iterate the loop, as we know that insert and update, all the operations are allowing us to use array element. So you can see in this endpoint we are going to get multiple values, like in this case we will get 4 records. So for all the operations of ATP connection allows to perform allows to perform that the and perform operations of the array operation. So here just we have to add the endpoints. I will add the ATP endpoint here. So just click here. This is the FOIS ATP connection. I will add this connection here. And here, as we are going to use upsert command, so we'll use upsert. And upsert is something that update and insert, or you can see just the merge operation. So I will use merge only, merge, merge ATP. Here we have to select operation as perform an operations on a table. So yes, and here we have to select insert or update, that is merge. Continue. Again same process, we have to select the schema, select the table, import the table and provide the mapping. So schema is our ATP. Table name, I will search using this one, the format. This is table only, so just search here. And here you can see this is our table. Just move this table right hand side and just click on import, so that this table will be imported into this configuration. And now click on continue. So finish. So our endpoint is configured to merge, perform the merge operations. That merge operation can insert or update the records into the ATP table. So now in the mapping we have to provide the value. So in the mapping, if you will look for the mapping, we just have to provide all the values which we want to insert or update. So here you can see, so these are other columns. So here you can see the FOIs. This is the table name having the array element at the multiple square bracket box, and this stored info is also the array element. So I will map this array element to array element. I will map this name to employee name, class to class, role to role, and the subject to subject. Now here you can see this is the record ID. So the record ID, obviously it will automatically generate. This OIC instance ID we have to provide. So this will be provided from the runtime. So OIC instance, sorry, this OIC instance mapped here. Now go back, the status, obvious in case of insert it will automatically pick from the default constant, and in case of update, so let me provide the value as update here. So status will be U, and the message I will put as update. In integration name, so this will be coming from the integration metadata, integration version, again creation date. So I will take it from the functions that we have, current date time function. So I will use this current date time functions. You can use any of them. And here I will select creation date, and here again I will use the same as the last update date. And created by, it will be from invoked by. So let's go for invoked by, and the invoked by as the last updated by. So now our mapping is done. We just have to activate these integrations to perform operations. Just go back and save. So go back and run this integration. So here you can see this is our dummy payload. So where is our, this is our payload. So this time what I want to do, so instead of, if you will see in right now in the table what value we are having, So we are having a value for employee role 100 having C++ with OOPS, employee 103 having Oracle Integration Cloud, and 101 having basic Java. So let me update some value so that it can update. So you can see the roll numbers 100 is already there. So instead of inserting it will perform update operations. So in update operations I just provided the mapping for name. It means that it will also update the name. So I will just want to provide that Alex Sam, and name will be Sam Samson, and John Kumar. So this name we given, this is our updated name. So as these three values are already there, so it will update this value. So this will just update the name this time, because same value role 10th we are passing as a 10th. So let me pass 10th as X, and this is also X, and 9 as IX. So it will update this all values also. Subject will update with the same value, let it be the same. And you can see 10 will not be there in the table. So this 10 will be inserted into the table. So this is the payload, updated payload. So let me copy this updated payload, and here let me provide it. So this is our updated payload. Just click on run. So once we will click on run, the same record will be hit to the tables using the ATP endpoint. As this is our array node and we provided the array mapping there. So based on that array mapping, it will insert the record into that array format. So these all are done. You can see they are in the, here we can see we have merged ATP. So as you can see, this time we didn't added for each loop, but again instead of providing the for each loop, if you will see the value message received by invoke merge ATP. So this endpoint, what value we pass, you can see all these four value is passed here. You can see one values, this is second values, this is third value, this is fourth value, and yeah, this is fourth value. So this four value we only passed here. So all these four value got passed to that endpoint, and this endpoint executed successfully. And if you will look for the table, you can see, so table got updated. You can see now this table having fourth record. So this three record got updated with the name. You can see Alex Sam, John Boar, and Sam Samson. And even it updated the class as simply class X, IX for 9 and X. And you can see the four new record which having the roll number 105. 105 were not there in the table. That's why they inserted 105 instead of skipping that one. So this is that the way we are using merge operation. And here you can see what we can say, one demerit of using that merge operation is that you cannot work with the status, right? So you can see, so as we provided the status as hard coded value, so either it's updated or inserted, they are passing the same values. So that there are some limitation in that. So if you want to achieve that kind of thing, so instead of using that merge operations, you have to add the same logic, that you have to add a logic for creating and updating. So how we can achieve that one? So when we are saying that creating updating, it means that, so whatever number of record we are passing as a request payload, we will iterate the loop over there. So each and every time this value, the roll number, we will pass to the table, and we will check that do we have any value available in the table with this roll number. If we will get yes, then we will go and we will use update operation. If we will get no, then we will go and we will use insert operation, so that we can perform, using the select statement and using that insert and update command. So how we can do? So let's move to the integration and let's achieve that problem. So just go back to the integration, and I'm just going to create a clone of this by making as a for clone. So our this integration is created. And here you can see this time what problem we face. Every all record got changed the status as updated and the process message as updated. Instead of that, this first record should be as created, right? Because this is the new record which we loaded, right? So as we provided all this mapping value in the mapping only, that's why it's updated for same message for all this record we had there. So here now you can see I will just, this is a merge operation. I will delete this merge operation here. So now this is the endpoint by which we will get all these four records. So we have to iterate the loop over there. So to iterate the loop, again we have the for each loop. So I will choose this for each loop here. And this for each loop asks the repeated element, and we know that the repeated element coming from the request payload, and this S2 info is our repeated element because that can have the multiple records. I will drag this here. we have to provide the element name. So that element name is something that loop variable name. So first I will give the name as student, sorry, student loop, and I will give the loop variable as a student loop, and not the loop I will use for each loop, a student for each, and I will give the name of loop variable is student for each underscore loop var. Go outside. So our loop variable is added. So inside that, before going to use operations, that can be that insert operation or update operation. So how we will identify? So this loop variable will hold that all the information. So we will just query this record roll number into the table first. That if we have the roll number in the table, then we will go for update. If we don't have roll number in the table, we will go for insert. So how we can check? So that's why Oracle integration ATP connection is providing another operations that the run SQL statement. So what we will do, we will just get a query from the table where status or where that roll number is equals to the roll number coming from the loop variable. So just like this is our table. So in this table, if you, so for example, if we want to check this in this table, any employee is there with the roll number 101 or not. So how we can check? So we just go and we can check, select star from, this is our table where emp underscore roll is equals to 1001. This is the things we can check. And if we are getting any value here, it means that this 101 is there in the table. If we are not getting anything, it means that 1001 is not there in the table. So that will be the logic. But in OIC, how we can provide this value, right? We cannot hard code this message. So that's why in OIC we have the parameter concept in SQL statement. So how we can pass the parameters? So we can use hash symbol to pass the parameters that will provide the runtime value, and with the hash message we have to provide the parameters name. So let me provide the parameters name as p underscore roll, and from where we will get this p underscore roll. So as we have to iterate this over the for each loop, so for each loop variable store the all info records. So for each variable will store first iteration it will store 1001, second iteration it will store 103, next 1005, 100500, and also like that one only, and this value we will map here in this payroll p roll. So let me copy this one, and remember in the select statement we don't require the semicolon, right? So just copy this one, and let me show you. If you will select this asterisk, the semicolon too, so what will happen? So first we have to add the endpoint, the ATP endpoint. This is the ATP connection I selected. I will give the name as get students ATP, and here we have to select operation as run a SQL statement. Now we selected run a SQL statement, click on continue, and here you can see here we have to write the query. So I query already copied, this is our query, and just before going to continue we just have to validate this. Just click on validate. So once everything will be fine, you will be able to see that validated. But that SQL that endpoint allow us not to pass this semicolon. So I will remove this semicolon here, and again I will validate. So this will be validated. Sometimes it can be possible that while writing the query and somewhere obvious we are checking the query and we will pass, you will get an error. So that can be that the syntax of the query is not correct. That can be that sometimes we are using and all. So let me say that we are getting error or not. So it's got executed. Let me check again somewhere if we have any extra values or not. It's working, but yeah, sometimes if you will pass additional spaces or that, and yeah, it will give us data. So it will return all the data from the tables. This one, let it be. No, it should not, right? So let me check why any incorrect value if we are passing. So here you can see it's giving us error. So just that's why it's asking before going to continue. We just have to validate. So once you will click on validate, so you will be able to see if your query having any errors or not. Just like in SQL developer, we are, or any IDE tool, when we are checking that our query is perfect or not. Sometimes you will see right now we added enter here and we are able to execute this query. But sometimes it's possible that you can get error. Your query is working fine, but you will get error just like that. So if you will get that error, that case you just try to remove all the additional spaces you have given in your code, so that there will not be any issues in that. So that way you can remove your query. So just I'm not using that semicolon here, so I just prefer not to use semicolon in the end. Continue and finish. So here you can see what we added. So we added as ATP endpoint where we executed the select queries. And this select queries is based on the parameters. So it will take all the columns present in the table where EMP roll number is equals to this parameters, and this parameter we have to pass. So that's why you have mapper. If you will go to the mapper, you will be able to see the column which we added as a parameters. And you can see p underscore roll is our parameter. So from where we will get this value? We will get the value from the loop variable, as this loop is going to iterate over the records. So this is our roll numbers we passed here. So go back and back. So here what it will do, this endpoint will return us data. That data can be that the data can be array element, or obvious that if it's array element, so it means that it can be values or it cannot be values. So what we will do, we will just add a switch statement here. So I'm just going to add switch statement so that I can add conditions. So what condition I want to add? So I want to add that if we are going to get any data from this endpoint, then we have to go and update. Or if we are not going to get any data, we have to go and insert. So what we can do, so instead of using that one, so here you can see name of this endpoint get s2n underscore atp. This is get s2n underscore atp. This is request. I don't want to go for request, I want to go for response. So expand this one, and you can see this is the array element, right? So it can be that multiple array element. So what we will do, I will just get a count of this and this node. So we have that count functions available. You can search or you can directly write this count function here. So here I just have to edit the mapper here, select the count. So this count function I will drag here, and now you can see this count is asking for the node set. So node set from where we will get? We will get node set from the input source, which is get student. So I will just expand this get student, and I will have to map this one here. So you can see this get student array element mapped to the count function. So this will return us the count. So I just want to see that if this count is greater than 0, right? And what is the name I want to give to this? Check record, get check count. More than 0. So this is the name I given, check count more than 0. If the count of this get student ATP output is greater than 0, go outside. So we want to perform that insert operation. Sorry, we want to perform in this case update operations. So again, so for updating that one, what we want to do, again we want to use a select queries. So update queries. So what update we want to do? So we want to update like update. This is our table set, and which column we want to update? We just want to update the name. So let me choose the name here, name, and name is equals to what we want to update. So this will be runtime, right? So that's why we will use parameters p underscore name, and or which column we want to add. So let's update the row employee class also is equals to, again I will use hash p underscore class, and we want to just update the status. So status is equals to, again I will use hash p underscore status, and I want to update the process message is equals to hash process message, where again our roll number is this one coming from parameters. So this value we want to execute. So using this way, what it will do, it will update this table and set this value, that update this value that employee name is equals to this one. We will pass the map role name, class, status, process message. This value we want to update, for which that the employee role is coming from that one. So let me copy this one again, and here again we have to add one ATP connection. So even we can use the operations. So instead of operations, update ATP. Instead of selecting this perform an operation on table, I will select run SQL statement. That run SQL statement allows to use that select a statement or update a statement, anything. Let me remove this column. Let me verify that or validate the query is perfect or not. Success, go continue and finish. So whatever parameters we added, we will get these parameters in the mapping: name, class, status, process message, and the role. So you can see the mapper added, and here we just have to edit the mapper. So you can see all this value we are able to get here. So from where we will get the mapper value? So we will get the mapper value from the lookup where. So this is the lookup where I want to add. So name I just want to map from here. Class I will map. Roll number. So this roll number is our where conditions I mapped here. Subject. We have not mapped the subject. So let it be. Let me check. We didn't check subject. We just check name, class. Okay, we didn't check subject. That's fine. And message status. So this time it will be it's going to update, so that's why I will use coded value as u for update, and process message I will use that records updated successfully. Now validate, go back. So this is done for that if our count is greater than 0, it means that record is there, we have to update. Now we have to add another condition. So instead of adding condition, I will go for otherwise, because we know that if record is not greater than 0, it means it's 0, right? So for adding another condition, we just have to go add, and we want to just add the otherwise instead of going to add another route. So we'll click on otherwise. New scope will be added. Let me expand. Save first. In generation 3, sometimes we are getting that issues. This is not going to be maximized. So just edit, expand. Here you can see this is our route 1. That's where we added the condition check count more than 0, and else it means that is not more than 0, it means less than 0 or 0. So in this case we want to insert, so again we have to add ATP connections, and here you can see we have to insert record, insert ATP. And obviously for insert also we can use the same script to insert. So our query should be insert into table values. We have to provide here, right, directly, or we just have to, we can provide the columns name too. So for which all column we want to insert, so we want to insert, again go to OIC instance ID, comma, record ID, it will automatically comes as it's having the sequence employee name, and that class role in the subject. So after this we have this one status, process message, integration name, integration version. So let me put it here, process message, integration name, it will be integration version. All this column I want to insert value, creation date, and after that we have three more, that created by, last updated date. So created by, comma, the last updated date, and last updated by. So again we have to provide the value to the inside the value bracket. So I will just providing the value, I will make this all as a parameters. So I will just use the same name to provide the parameters, and just we will add the hash to make the column name this as a parameter. So this will be name only, right? So it can be possible to have the same, or instead of doing that, so I will use this one value. I will open this new tab here, and I will replace this comma with comma hash p underscore. So this got our value. So let me add this value in the first also. So our column name parameters name is p underscore OIC instance ID and all. This got our parameters and the last, right? So that's done. So our this query is ready to insert records. So I'm just going to use this one. Let's see. Oh, so not here. So again, I will run a SQL statement. So go back and we'll put it here. Click on validate. So once we will click validate, if everything will be fine, we will be able to get to move further. Here you can see we are getting error. So if we are getting error, so let's see that do we have any error in our query. So it seems that we don't have any error in the query. So let me remove all these spaces we had added. So let's see that two rows is allowing or not. So here you can see we just remove that one, right? We just remove additional spaces here, that additional new line we had for this one, and it's allowed, right? So that was I was talking about in the previous note. So just click on continue and finish. So as we added the endpoint, so using the mapper we have to provide the value to insert, right? So just click on the mapper, and in the mapper you will be able to see the same parameters, right? The same parameters value which we added, that p underscore employee class and all, right? Everything, and we have to provide value here. So as this is case for inserting the new record, so the new record here we just have to provide a status as an, as we are just going to provide use the insert query, and in the insert query we added the status column. If we skip the status column, then it will pick from default, but we added the column here, so we have to provide the value. So n is for a status column, and process message will be new, and here remaining column we have to provide the OIC instance. Obvious, it will pick from that the runtime value, the instance ID, and the created by or updated by. So this invoked by will use as a updated by, and the same we will use by created by. Let me have a functions that creation date. Sorry, see dollar enter current date. Yeah, this one. So I will go for date and time for creation date, and same I will use for last updated by. So these are done. Now we have to provide the value for remaining column, that integration name, that the integration name will coming from here, that integration version, and all these columns will come from our loop variable. So that is our loop variable. So the name, class, roll number, and the employee subject. Just click on validate. Go back. Now we added all these things. If we will, whatever we record we are getting, we are adding loop over there, and based on that we are checking that if that loop records is there in the table or not. So we just added ATP endpoint to select the value from table. If we have value, then we are going to use insert, sorry, update, and if we don't have value, we are going to use insert. So we added the message to, let's go back and run the integration. So let me run this integration here. So here you can see this is our request payload. In the request payload, we have these four records, and these four records are already there in our table. These four records are already there in the table, that 1005, 1031. So let me add 2 is missing. So let me make first record column as 2 here, or let me just have a copy of this record 2 and make that. And here the roll number is 102, class is 8, and that is PCS. Let me make it a PCS. And the remaining for all this, let me update, make this C++ and oops to C++ and Java, and that X2, let it be X only. And here for the basic Java, to make it JavaScript, and basic Java, and this 003 met is that OIC and PCS, and here this 1005, let me make it as PCS and PVCS. So this update we want to go. Let me add one more column, or one more record, that's the let's Parker, and the class is 12. Roll number, I'm just going to add one more roll number, that is 1006, and it will be OCI and DB. So this 6 value we added in our request payload, this is that we are going to pass this integration. So just I remove the previous one passed here, and just I'm going to click on this run. So it will iterate the loop over all these record, and based on the loop variable, it will pick the roll number for each and every record. It will get the data from the table based on the roll number. If it will get the data, it will go and update the record. If it will not get the data, it will just insert the record. So let me have a look on that. So you can see loop iterated 6 times, and if you will see the iteration 1, with iteration 1 is going to execute for get student. That get student is, you can see in the get student, what message we are receiving, that the information, right? And what value we passed to get one. So here you can see the 100 we passed. So as we 100 were there in the table, it received the result. And based on that, if you will see the below, the root condition is root throw switch root with condition count is greater than 0, that it's executed. And inside that we added for update, you can see invoke update ATP. This update ATP executed, 2 3 4 are there. If you will see the last one, so the last one updated for insert ATP. You can see based on that we added conditions. If you will see the invoke get student, we passed message as 1006. 1006 were not there in the table, so that it didn't return the response. You can say response is empty, it means that count will be 0 only. So based on that, it's got an inserted. So if you will look back to the database table, this is our table, and if you will have a query in this table, let me mark this one. You can see, so now we have total 6 record. Out of all 6 record, you can see this 3 to 5 got 314, 4 got updated u, and 2 got inserted. Again, these are the new record and these are the updated records. So by using this approach, you can add the logic to insert and update. So now next we are going to learn that how we can handle the exception, and what it means that handle the exceptions. If you will see, this is the 04 I'm going to run, and if I'm just going to remove this roll number, so this roll number is null, right? So if I will execute here, so null cannot be checked, right? So it cannot be checked with null, or it cannot insert with that, right? So you will see based on that we are able to get that error message. So why we are getting this error message? If you will try to debug your integration, right? So how you will debug? So one of the payload we are not getting this roll number, as you know that based on the roll number we had the logic, and this is our primary key. So if you will see, we got error in the loop. So loop iteration, if you will expand, iteration 1 having the error, and what error we get? So while running this get s2 and ATP, it's fine that we pass a null value, and it will check that if roll num having null, then give us the result. So obviously it will return back the 0. You can see what value we passed. We passed value p role as null value. Here you can see we are not passing, it means it's null value. And based on the null value, it's not returning any value. That's correct, right? We don't have any record where roll number is null. We don't have any record in the table where roll number is null. That's perfectly fine. And if you will see after that, based on this, it will move to the condition otherwise. In otherwise, we added the condition, or the we added operation as insert. And we know that as this column, that the row emp role is our primary column, and the primary column cannot store null value, right? So as you can see, while inserting, we pass the value, the roll number p underscore emp role is null, right? And thus null. When we pass to the ATP got an error saying that we cannot insert null value. You can see aura cannot insert null into the table, that column at emp role. So that's the error message we got, right? So that's not error, that's the exception, right? So we got exception, and due to exception our integration got terminated. So in our integration we don't have any logic to handle that exception, that's why it got error out, right? So how we can handle that situation? To handle that situation we have that scope option, right? So let's add the scope here. So this is our integration, and while in otherwise, while inserting the record, we got error because we cannot insert null value in the primary key column. So here we have to handle the exception, and even not only handling the exceptions. So what logic we can do? So when we inserted the record into table, right? So before going to, whenever this integration will be executed, what it will do? So here we just have the, let me see that one. So here we had the logic to check, and here before going to insert, so what it will do, whatever error message we are going to get, we will add the scope here, so that we can handle the exception in the scope fault handler. And after that, what we want to do, so whenever we will get, we will store that error message in variable. In last of the integration we will return that error message somewhere else, right? So that kind of things we can do. So yeah, allow me 1 minute. So now you can see what challenges we are facing. So whenever we are getting any error is any of the endpoint, so as our integration doesn't have any, it doesn't have any scope of fault handler, so that's why when we are getting error, that integration is going to be terminated. So what happening when we are getting this error here, so this is going to outside this scope and trying to find any fault handler, that the error handler. So we don't have any scope here, that's why it's moving to the global fault handler, and it's looking that do we have any global fault handler or not. So no, we don't have any global fault handler, so in this case it's generating an error. So if you don't have any scope added in your integration, you can add the global fault handler to handle the exception. So just for example, in this case, we will get an error. Let me trigger an email. So that we just have to configure the global fault handler. So how we will configure the global fault handler? Just click on this icon so that it will move you to the global fault handler case. So this is our global fault handler page. So by clicking again here, you will move to the your integration canvas, design canvas, and if you will click here, you will move your control will move to the global fault handler. And you can see in the global fault handler, by default we are getting this endpoint as rethrow. That rethrow fault, it means that whatever fault you got here in this message, the fault will be returned to the integrations. That's the logic here we had. So what we have to do in this case, we want to send an email notification. So just add the plus notification, plus here add the notification. This is the notification, so I will add this notification action here, and here we have to provide all the messages. Here you can see whatever variable we created, you will not be able to find variable here in this scope, that general variable we created, right? So let me give the name as global global notification. So now here we have to select the two messages, so let me provide the two as and cc. I don't want to put cc or bcc anything here. Let me go for directly for from. No reply is by default configured. That's why we are able to see if you will pass any invalid value, invalid email, you will not be able to get an email. So I'm just going to go for subject. Subject is something that global error in integration global fault. This is the subject I want to give. Body, I want to give it a high to integration got errored out and error has been captured in global fault handler. So I don't have any attachment, so let it be the same. Just click outside so that whenever we will find such kind of situation, it control will move inside the global fault handler, and based on that, it will generate an email. So that's the only things we have to do. Just go back and let me activate this integration. So now we just have to activate this integration and run. So integration got activated. Go to body, and here you can see again we have the same, that roll number is null. So as we'll click on run, so this integration will be terminated as error only, but this error will be handled, and that error message we will get an email. So let's have a look on email. And one more thing, if you will see, when control move to the global fault handler, status of the integration will be in error. So error, it means that go to the track instance, and here you can see status of this integration is error. And when we will handle this error in our scope handler, the scope fault handler, our integration will not be completed in error. Our integration will completed in error only when control will move to the global fault. So that's the reason we are getting this error here. We will see the email message, and here you can see in the email we got an email. You can see error in integration global font handler. This is the error message we configure right now, right? So now let's have back to that integration, and here let me deactivate this integration and let me handle this error or exception in our scope fault handler. So now you can see this is the error here, the endpoint where we are getting that error. So we will move this endpoint in the scope fault handler. So you can see where is the scope. So this scope we will add here. Let me add a scope by clicking here only. So this is the scope, and this scope is for update inserting the records. I will give the name of this scope is insert scope. Now we want to perform this insert operation inside this scope so that we will add the fault handler to the scope so that it can be handled. So let me have a cut, paste it here. Again I will do cut and paste it here. Now here you can see this scope is like into this node is having that fault. So again right now if you will see, it will generate an error. That error will move to the fault, and here we don't have the fault handler. So again it will move to the global fault handler. To handle the exception in this level, we have to add the fault handler. So how you will get the fault handler? So just click on this three icon and you can see fault handler, and just right now we have to add the default handler as we don't have a specific error for this endpoint, the insert or ATP endpoint. So you can see this is our main. This main is that scope main. Inside the scope we have this main is the code, the where we are writing the code, and if we will get an error, that error will move to this fault handler. So here we will get an error message. So again if you will see, for example, this is our first record, we got error, so that error will be handled here. Again it will iterate the loop again next time. But what you want to do, so what I will do, I will create one global variable. That global variable will hold the error message. So here I'm going to just create one global variable, and this what kind of response we are returning from integrations. If you will see, integration is returning the response as status. So this status let me make as a array element, so that every time when we will get error message we can concatenate the status here, right? So how we can make, so here we just have to make that as status. So inside that we have to add this 2 point. So this endpoint got our array element. So let me change the name here, status, record status. So here you can see, for example, we have 4 records. So this loop will iterate 4 times, and all 4 times we will update the record status as success or error, and we'll mark it here. So that kind of things we are going to do. So obvious for with that we will create one global variable, so that that global variable each and every time it can concatenate or it can append the same messages. So that's why we require this structure. So let me copy this structure and update the endpoint here. So this is the endpoint. Continue, continue. This is the response. I'm just going to update the response payload here. The response payload is updated. So we are getting error. So it means that we have some error in the payload. So you can say this is the error we forget to add the column. So our config array is configured. So just click on continue and finish. So our response payload is configured for this integration. Let's have a save. All the error message we will have a sort out each by one. So first we have to create the global variable. So just I'm going to create global variable. We'll give the name as gvar underscore response. And this will be type as object, and so first it's not that response, gvar response message, and that response message will be type of that where is the response, that start rate response. So expand this start rate response wrapper, and here you can see the response wrapper having this aid. I will map there so that the variable gvar underscore response message will be created with 2 columns. Whatever column is there, status and process message. So this is the global variable which will hold the 2 variable. And now we have to create array global variable so that it will use append. So gvar underscore response message array, and it will be again the type of object only, and what value it will store. So this will be object of the array element, this array element, right? So if you will see the response wrapper, this response wrapper is the one which will be our array element. And even instead of that looking for this array element, we can go and we can select this one also, not this one. uh, Let me have a look on that. So, yeah, so let me use this one only. So this response wrapper I will map. So the inside the response wrapper we have this 2 endpoint. This 2 endpoint will be considered as a array, and inside that for this record, that the record status, we will map this 2 variable here, this response message variable. Let's go outside. Let's have a look that we are able to do that one. I'm getting bit confused here. So this global variable is created. So whenever we will get error, so control will move inside the fault handler, and inside the fault handler we will update the global variable message. So for that, for updating the global variable, we have the stitch option. So this is data stitch. I will drag this data stitch here. In the data stitch here you can see what message we want to update. So we want to update the value for this global variable. So which one is our global variable? The global variable gvar response matches message. This is our global variable. So I want to update the status. So this status I want to, where is this one? Status I want to assign with this message as error, error for the record. And what will be our record? So record will be coming from loop variable. So I will use concat here, concat comma comma, and where is our loop variable? Expand this loop variable here, and this is our roll number. So expand this roll number here, and again maybe that roll number will not be there. So instead of roll number, let me have a name. So it will be like concat, it will be my error for the record. This will be name. Now if we have to update the error message, so we'll have to again go for the global variable process message, and assign is there, and we have to select the message. that coming from the fault. You can see each and every scope having the fault handler. That fault handler you will be able to see the message. So as I just click outside, it's got removed. So just let me edit that one, the process message. And what process message I want to configure, you can see somewhere we have fault. You can see insert a scope fault object, right? Insert a scope, our scope name, and this is the fault object. So just expand here. Inside the file, you can see the error code, error reason, details. I will just go for the error reason, drag here. So now the two variable just updated with two message. So each and every time whenever we will got this error, control will move inside the fault handler, and that fault handler will hold this two error message and the hard coded message we given. Now we already created one array variable for this global created array variable for the global variable only. So now we will append these two message in the global variable. So just expand this one. Where is our global variable? So if you will see gvar, this is the array, right? So I will expand this one. So this array we choose. So this time I will use this response wrapper, and here instead of assign I will select the messages append, so that every time it will just append the value. At what value we want to append? We want to append the value as the response, this one, right? So record outside that record result, this one. So every time whenever we will get error message, that error message with this two column will be merged to that global variable we created. So just click outside. No, we got error. It means that somewhere we have messing in the error message only. Append is not allowed to that non-repeating element. So this response wrapper is not array element. So where is our global variable array? So inside the response wrapper, this is this gvar. So here we just have to select this gvar only. Just click outside. Let's have a look on that. Again we are getting error. Append is not allowed to perform non-repeating element. So is this is our records status is repeating element, and append, and the record status coming from the this record status coming from the global variable error message. Okay, that's fine. Go outside. Now here you can see what we have done. If we'll click here, here you can see we created two variable. That the first variable is gvar underscore response matches. This variable having two node as a result status, and the result status, if you will see, result status in our request payload having these two column, result status having these two column. So our first global variable, that response matches, holding these two columns. Now we created another variable, that's the gvar response message array. This gvar response message array hold the response wrapper. This response wrapper is this complete node. So it means that every time it will go and it will merge the value in this repeated element. So that's why we added the stitch here. In the stitch here, first we added these two actions to update the value to that specific node. Update the value for the global variable for this column and this two column. This two updated by using this two action, and later we added one more global variable append operation, so that every time whatever this message will be hold in the global variable, that will be appended if we are getting that error message same again and again. So that's we had done. So this way we handle the exceptions. So what will happen, for example, let me show you the loop. So you can see this is the endpoint where user will give us the repeated element, the array element. Based on that array element, we added the loop here. So for example, we have four records while running this integration. That four records will iterate. This loop will iterate four times. Each and every time it will move inside the loop. First, it will get the record from that ATP table based on the select we added here, and based on that you can see it's just moving to the switch statement and checking that do we have coming count of this result of this endpoint is greater than 0 or not. If it is greater than 0, then it's moving inside this one and it's updating the record, and if it is not greater than 0, it means that of which it will move inside the otherwise. In otherwise we added the scope here. You can see the scope coming completely here, and in the scope we have main and the default handler. So for each and every scope we have two block, that's the main block and the fault handler block. Main block is something where we are writing our code, so we added the code that is endpoint to insert the record. And if we will get any error while using this endpoint, the error will be moved, a control will move inside the fault handler for this scope, and inside the fault handler whatever logic we added that will occur, right? So this will execute. So inside the fault handler we added the global variable update and append operation so that it can store the error message. And after getting this error, it will not go outside anywhere. So after resolving that error in the fault handler, it will just move outside the scope. So this is our scope, our control will move outside the scope. Outside the scope is coming to this otherwise, and otherwise outside this otherwise we have the loop iteration scope. You can see this is the switch. So again it will go outside the switch, and outside the switch we have the loop iteration. So as it was first iteration only, so after getting the error message it will iterate another times. The same way it will iterate until that all records will process. So that was the logic we added. So now this time we are getting error here, so we just have to remove the error. So as we updated the response mapper, that's why we are getting error this endpoint. So just I'm going to update the message here. So if you will go here, you will be able to see the status and process got errored out because these two nodes are not there right now. So why these two messages are not there? Because we moved these two inside this result the record status, this one, right? And obviously this value we will update from the global variable. That global variable is that g response message array. So expand this one, you can see having this record. So I will map this record result here, status with status, process message with process message, and click on validate. Go back. So error got resolved. Now our integration doesn't have any error. Click on save and go back. So integration is configured, it will go and activate. So this is 4.1. So I'm just going to activate this integration. So let's have running this integration body. And now again you can see our first record doesn't have the roll number. So obviously again we should get the same error message. So let me run this integration. So here you can see when we executed our integration, so integration got completed, and when this completed, we are going to get the response. The response we get is status error for the record Alex Sam. That Alex Sam having the error message that we don't have this one. And what is the error? So this is the same error we got while executed. You can see that somewhere cannot insert null into this field. You can see these are the message, and after that you can see we added the total count and all. And you can see if you will run this check that one. So this is the fourth iteration, the iterated four times, six times. First iteration we got error, that error got handled in the handler, fault handler. You can see the fault handler, all these things we added, and after that it's again moved to the second iteration, third iteration and all. For example, if we will remove the message for the same, this one too, right? Run. So we should got two error, right? As we have two records with the error value, that the incorrect values. So it's executing. In the response we will get two values, and you can see again this time also it will iterate six times. So you can see this is the value we got. The first we got for Alex and Sam. The same message we should go for second. You can see this is for the second, Sanju and Sarma. If I will copy, if I can show you somewhere here, you can see status is coming twice. You can see this one, 1 and 2. As we use the global variable concept to append or to use that the error message again and again, and same in the response we return. You can see Alex Sam having error, Sanju Sharma having error, total number of records 6. So we have not added logic to make a count of success and like success and error. That's why it's not showing this message. Even in our integration we can add the logic to update these values too. So that's about all this. In next session, we will cover invoking the PLSQL procedure. So for using that PLSQL procedure, we will use a scenarios where we will get a raw data from any file from file server. The raw data we will insert into table, and based on that, we will add few validations. Just like we will check that table column having that employee roll number as null or not, and if that having that subject as this one, then this should be class should be more than 10, and that kind of things we will add. Based on that, we will update the status as validated or error, and all the validated record we will return in the response. So that kind of things we are going to cover. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any queries and you want to ask anything, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.